Before you book that ticket to San Francisco, take a few minutes to watch this video, because every step you take in this city could be clouded by fog, leading you astray and straight into a pit of despair. San Francisco in 2025 is no longer the destination of the American dream. It's a city struggling under one of the worst homelessness crises in the nation. Once glittering boulevards are now lined with tents. Public squares that used to host gatherings have turned into makeshift shelters for thousands with nowhere else to go. Trash, hazardous medical waste, and a quiet, haunting sense of hopelessness fill the streets. So much so that even police officers hesitate to enter some areas. In today's video, we'll take you into the very heart of this crisis. A place where dreams have been swallowed by crime, suffering, and a sense of abandonment. Small note: this video is not intended to criticize or blame any individual or organization. All content is based on credible sources, with the aim of providing an objective perspective and promoting understanding of a systemic issue. Are you ready to explore the dark corners of this foggy city? Let's start right now. By day, San Francisco still shines under the Bay Area sun, with towering glass buildings reflecting the light like a postcard welcoming you to a new era. But just a few blocks away, that light begins to fade, giving way to the darkness etched into the faces of those wandering the streets with nowhere to call home. Tents spill onto sidewalks as if someone had turned back the clock, dragging San Francisco into a version of itself straight out of the Great Depression. You don't need to leave the country or go to distant lands to witness the collapse. Just stand in the heart of San Francisco, where the glass skyscrapers reach for the sky, and look down at the pavement, and you will see a completely different world. No longer are there the sparkling lights of the golden promise of the American dream. Only the smoldering cracks of a city gradually fading away. In 2025, 8,323 homeless people were recorded in San Francisco in just one night of an official survey. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Over the course of a year, more than 20,000 people have turned to support services because they have nowhere else to go. However, for every one person helped out of homelessness, about 3 more fall into that situation. It means that the system is straining against a fierce wave, with each crash onto the shore adding another family losing their home, another elderly person losing their bed, another child losing their sense of safety. There is something that has broken. Not just the roofs of those people, but the bond between individuals. The so-called community, once the unwritten foundation of America, now echoes faintly. The values that once supported the baby boomer generation, such as the belief that effort will be rewarded, that everyone deserves a chance, are being challenged every day. We used to take pride in the fact that America leaves no one behind. But if even those who built it are being left behind, then what are we heading towards? And in the noise of modern life, is there anyone left who can hear the cry for help echoing from the silent sidewalks? In one of the wealthiest cities that prides itself on being one of the most humane in America, a paradox is becoming evident every day. Poverty is not only being neglected, it is gradually being quietly erased. According to the latest data from the US Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, homelessness nationwide has increased by 18% in just 1 year, leading to refugee camps springing up like mushrooms after rain across major cities. But in San Francisco, where even a small apartment can consume an entire month's income of an average worker, the issue is not just a crisis in statistical reports. It also hides untold stories on every sidewalk, in every corner, under every awning. In recent months, the city has been more aggressive with homeless encampments, especially in public areas. An urban cleanup campaign was launched, but for people like Riley, who only set up a thin tarp to shield against the cold wind, this cleanup felt more like a criminal relocation. It's hard to believe that in a free and equal country like America, There are people who are arrested and punished just for trying to survive.
I have my purse.
Okay, we'll make sure we...
My most important...
The San Francisco police assert that arrest is a last resort, only applied when someone continuously refuses the support and services available from the city. But in reality, the cycle keeps repeating. Homeless people are pushed out of shelters back onto the streets and then continue to be warned, fined, or arrested, even though they can't afford to pay a single fine. Nearly 1,000 people have been prosecuted in the past year for setting up tents in public places. Although most were not prosecuted, the psychological and social consequences lingered. The percentage of people admitted to shelters has increased from 35% in 2019 to nearly 50%, a positive sign, indicating that the efforts are not in vain. But that number cannot erase the feeling of helplessness when hundreds of people still slip through every safety net, simply because the system has too many loopholes and the demand is increasingly beyond tolerance. Mayor Daniel Lurie asserts that San Francisco does not criminalize poverty. He believes that the city still leads with its services and humanitarian values, combining punishment with recovery support, making public areas safer and attracting the return of businesses. But those numbers, along with that statement, do not raise the question. If everything is so good, why do thousands of people here still have to live without homes? Why is it that someone who was helped yesterday is back on the streets today with a bag in hand and sunken eyes? Is it possible that in a society trying to solve the issue of homelessness with legal tools, what we lack is not new regulations, but a sufficiently humane perspective to understand that sometimes when a person sets up a tent on the sidewalk, it is not an act against society, but simply a struggle to continue living as a human being? Stepping into San Francisco, you might not only be overwhelmed by the harsh reality, but also feel a sense of déjà vu. As if I had set foot here before, in some hazy dream about the Las Vegas Strip, where the luxurious lights and dreams are exchanged for the dreams of the impoverished. San Francisco now also bears such a resemblance, but not in the middle of the tourist boulevard, but on Cap Street, from 18th to 22nd, once a quiet residential area, now a red light district for the raw materials in the nighttime industrial machine seeking survival. Every night, long lines of personal vehicles queue up like cars entering a casino, but there are no dazzling lights or glamorous rewards waiting. Only the sound of engines running until 3 a.m. and the shadows of people quietly standing near the doors of houses. The residential area is in turmoil, and adults do not dare to leave their homes after 8 p.m. And the children are awakened in the middle of the night by the sound of cars, people, and even questions that parents don't know how to answer. A mother shared, "I had to come up with all sorts of excuses to explain to my child what they saw through the window. But there are limits. How can you explain the chaos in an age-appropriate way?" From the heights, the city still sparkles as the media paints it as the bright spot of technological dreams. But underground, Cap Street each night seems to slip out of the orderly frameworks of the law. Residents say they feel trapped in their own homes, as outside, the concept of safety has now become an elusive notion. The people here do not blame those who appear every night. Most of them understand that behind those silent figures could be an untold story, about those who are being forced, controlled, or simply driven to the brink by personal circumstances. The San Francisco police stated that they had made efforts to control the situation, even carrying out some arrests. But the reality is far from the expectations. A new state law has been enacted that has removed some of the gathering behaviors from the list of offenses, making intervention more difficult than ever. A police officer shared, "We were there, but we could hardly do anything more." Everything was hanging by a thread. In that context, the city government proposed a temporary solution, erecting a fixed plastic barrier along Cap Street, about 2 feet high and capable of being filled with water to stay in place. aimed at limiting cruising vehicles from appearing at night. But residents are worried that this solution does not address the root of the problem and is merely pushing the darkness to another neighborhood. Social organizations like St. James Infirmary have raised alarms about a group of people who are gradually losing control over their lives, especially young women who are pushed into circumstances they did not choose, without a voice and without the right to live for themselves. They do not expect anything grand. They only need one thing that seems the simplest: to live peacefully in their own home, behind the door they have spent their whole lives preserving. Since when did peace become a luxury, even in the very homes of ordinary people? And if that peace gradually becomes a privilege, then the American dream, will it still hold anything for those without that privilege? In San Francisco, a city once symbolizing humanitarianism and equal opportunity, the price of living a normal life has now become a brutal test for the majority of working-class people. A one-bedroom apartment rents for an average of over $3,300 a month. Meanwhile, the minimum wage is $18.07 an hour, which means that even working full-time, a person cannot afford to pay rent, let alone food, medical expenses, utilities, or emergency costs. For thousands of people, their entire income is barely enough to keep a roof over their heads, and that still doesn't guarantee they won't be pushed out onto the streets tomorrow. It is no longer a story of laziness or lack of effort. It is an invisible tax that modern society has imposed on low-income individuals. The tax for the right to exist, to live peacefully, and to dream of a future. A tax that no one names, but everyone has to pay, and it's getting more and more expensive. In many neighborhoods, where there used to be affordable apartments, they have now been replaced by high-end glass buildings, with studio rooms priced as much as a family working hard. The public lands that were once the last hope for workers are now gradually being sold to investors. Every time a luxury project rises, the makeshift tents across the street become more crowded, like a distorted mirror reflecting two completely opposite worlds just a few steps apart. Some people have had to choose to live in their cars, in tents, or move continuously between parks because they cannot afford the current prices. They are not homeless in the old definition. They are people who once had jobs, once had homes, once believed in the American dream. But now, they are pushed to the fringes of the system, simply because they can't afford to rent a place in society. A 60-year-old man standing on the sidewalk, once a veteran who believed he had fought for a better future, now looks around and wonders, so where is my part in that dream? The city government still asserts that they lead with humanitarian values and are ramping up housing support programs. But in the meantime, construction regulations still lean towards investors. As for the people, those who only dream of a stable life, they are asked to wait, to endure, or to leave. If even a place to stay has become too luxurious for ordinary workers, is the American dream still meant for everyone? Or is it just a reward for those who can afford to buy it? In a city that once prided itself on being a hub of innovation and social progress like San Francisco, something that used to be simple, like a hearty meal, is now becoming a luxury for thousands of people. Food prices in the Bay Area have surged over the past 3 years. According to data from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, in just 2024, food costs in the San Francisco-Oakland area increased by more than 13%, far exceeding the national average. Basic items such as milk, eggs, bread, meat, and vegetables have all continuously increased in price, making cooking at home a difficult task for those with low or unstable incomes. It's no longer about eating healthy or making smart choices. Many people now only choose between hunger and survival. Meals wrapped in instant noodles, charity biscuits, or a dry loaf of bread have become the new standard for survival. What once was the foundation of family life, the gathered dinners, the meals cooked by mother, now only remains in memory. Across the street, just a few blocks away, the upscale restaurants still shine brightly, serving menus costing hundreds of dollars for each dinner. The luxurious meals, they are not just opulence, they have become a taunting symbol of the ever-widening gap between two worlds. One side is a 3-course menu, artisanal wine, and private parking. On the other side, there are long lines of people waiting for porridge in the cold wind and dim streetlights. The food security situation in San Francisco is at an alarming level. According to Feeding America, 1 in 5 adults in this city are currently unsure if they will have enough money for food this week. Food banks have to operate at full capacity, with many places forced to deny or reduce portions to share with more people. But compassion also has its limits, while the demand continues to grow. A system that once committed to ensuring no one is left behind is now leaving thousands to fend for themselves against poverty in the heart of a wealthy city. Hunger is no longer the result of laziness, but rather the outcome of an economic structure that has pushed the vulnerable to the bottom and then left them there. In a developed society, no meal should be a distant reward, but in San Francisco, abundance is gradually becoming a privilege. So, when will a warm meal return to being a basic right, instead of a rare gift in the lives of thousands of forgotten people? San Francisco, once considered the jewel of the Pacific, a gathering place of creativity, freedom, and high quality of life, is now facing a crisis that is hard to define. It's not just a wave of crime, but a silent erosion from within, the fracture of trust, discipline, and the very notion of safety within the community. Crime is no longer sensational headlines in the newspapers. It is the sound of glass shattering at midnight, the hurried footsteps outside the alley, the worry every time you leave home and wonder if the car windows will still be intact when you return. The situation of car vandalism, property theft, harming pedestrians, and even organized incidents in public areas has become a daily obsession. According to statistics from the San Francisco Police Department, the property crime rate, including car theft, robbery, and burglary, has significantly increased over the past 2 years, especially in districts with a high population density and near public transportation stations. But the numbers, no matter what they say, cannot convey the sense of unease that is creeping through the neighborhoods. No one dares to leave the front door ajar. No one is comfortable taking a stroll late at night anymore. And no one is sure that a senseless accident won't happen to them. Crime does not arise on its own. It is the consequence of the deeper layers of society being neglected. When poverty, homelessness, and despair intersect at the same point. When mental health services are lacking. When those who need support are pushed to the margins. When compassion becomes a luxury that one must be cautious about. A veteran in his 60s sighed in a brief interview. "I have lived through wars, but I have never seen my homeland become as frightening as it is now." The police and city authorities are under heavy pressure. On one hand, there is the demand to restore order to protect residents. On the other hand, there is societal pressure to avoid criminalizing social issues such as homelessness or vice. But when the budget is limited, when the forces are insufficient, and when community consensus declines, then all efforts become fragmented. Isn't the frightening thing not just the crime, but the fact that we are gradually accepting insecurity as a part of life? And if one day people no longer find it unusual to see someone being robbed, chased, or left on the sidewalk, what remains to hold on to kindness in this society? San Francisco did not stand idly by. This city, once regarded as a symbol of innovation and compassion, has implemented numerous policies to address homelessness, revitalize deteriorating areas, and maintain a sense of safety for the community. The city government has increased the budget for supportive housing services, expanded the number of shelters, and deployed rapid response teams specifically trained to handle emergencies related to homelessness. Those efforts are undeniable. The rate of access to temporary housing services has increased, and the number of people receiving medical and mental health support has also risen. In addition, initiatives like Care Courts, a new court system specifically for the homeless with mental illness, are expected to provide a mandatory yet humane pathway to help them reintegrate into society. At the same time, the city is also restarting the affordable housing construction program, despite facing many legal and budgetary obstacles. However, no matter how good the policies are, the big question remains: is anyone truly listening to the voices of those directly affected? Because many policies are designed from behind a desk, with expectations and numbers, but do not step into every street corner, every makeshift shelter, where a person is shivering in the cold night wind simply because they do not qualify for a shelter. In that context, voices from the community, from non-profit organizations, churches, and volunteers, serve as a bridge connecting what the government has yet to fully address. Hot meals, hygiene supply distribution stations, job training programs are not long-term solutions, but they are small lights that keep part of the human spirit warm. The state government has also stepped in, with hundreds of millions of dollars in funding for cities like San Francisco, Los Angeles, and San Diego, the areas most severely affected by the crisis. But even when the money is poured in, the biggest challenge remains trust. Faith in the system. The belief that this intervention will not just be a short-term relief effort that fades into oblivion. How can policies not just be texts, but become actions that touch real people, real lives? And is it possible to have a social model where the homeless are not seen as a burden, but as an indispensable part of equitable development? San Francisco is not the first city to face a crisis, and it certainly will not be the last. But precisely because this place was once a symbol of hope, freedom, and creativity, every crack on the surface of society makes it impossible for us to turn a blind eye. A city once dubbed the destination of the American dream is now caught in deep contradictions. Development and decay, prosperity and alienation, brilliant lights above and silent shadows below. The frightening thing is, what is happening in San Francisco today might also be brewing in the place where you live. When peace is no longer a given, when a roof over one's head, something that seems so simple, has become a luxurious privilege. When people's hearts gradually close out of fear, out of helplessness, because they no longer know where to place their trust. And when the light out there is just a shiny facade, hiding the cracks spreading from within. What do you think about everything that is happening? Have you ever witnessed or experienced something similar in your own community? If we want to make a change, where should we start? Please share your story in the comments below. If you find this video brings a valuable perspective, please like, share, and subscribe to help us spread real stories, where truth, emotion, and hope always accompany us. Each of your shares is a way to help more people realize that this world still has listeners, and there are still places to start making a change. This video is made for educational purposes and to raise social awareness based on public sources, independent reports, and reflections from various perspectives. We do not represent any organization, individual, or government, and do not aim to assign blame, draw conclusions, or attack anyone. All images used are for illustrative purposes, and the video content is presented in a neutral, constructive, and respectful manner.